Welcome everyone to the Regenerate Your Reality podcast series, all about regeneration in every way. This is our 7th episode of this learning, and it's so nice because I'm able to bring on people that I want to learn from and that are my teachers and my mentors. And today we're going to talk all about financial freedom and how homesteading and regenerative farming can really expedite our abundance in our lives. It regenerates the soils, our health, and our communities. And I'm going to start off just showing you a little bit of our own backyard, and then we'll open it up to conversation with Ancel. I'm going to share my screen here and show you our backyard. So we first had a idea of what sovereignty and financial freedom could be, and we started to draw a little picture of all the tropical fruits that we want to grow. And then we turned it into reality and we started planting, and within 2 years we're 50% food sovereign. This is our farm. We live near Tinamaste and the Pacific side of the country. And we see that this world, there's so much turbulence going on in our worlds. There's a lot of scarcity, and one way to really move past this is to grow our own food, and at least some of our own food, and to nurture and cultivate our gardens. I'm going to also share with you, when we think about our needs, we can ask ourselves, what do we actually really need? You know, I started to 5-6 years ago, I was spent 80% more than I spend now. I've been able to reduce all of the excess, what is really not needed in our lives, and break it down to what are the absolute needs for a happy and healthy life. And that's clean water, healthy food, shelter, clothes, education, electricity, and love and connection. Some ideas, financial freedom ideas to really take control of your abundance is to pay off your debts, to be your own business owner, diversify your income streams, and to invest in your future with continuing to reevaluate where you're at, what do you need, and allowing one dream to let go and go on to another. Like, for example, if you're in one place, you can move and find a better environment for you to thrive within. There's also diversity of what you grow, diversity of what you're investing in, and food forests are an excellent way of protecting seeds, bringing back biodiversity to the lands, and growing some of your own food. Another really important factor to think about is self-love and time management. So if we aren't showing up for ourselves and we're not managing our time, then we're not valuing ourselves, and that is not financial freedom and sovereignty. So something that I really highly recommend is looking at projects and working with projects that really resonate with you, and being your own business owner and having multiple streams of income, whether it's from some of your crops, you teach some workshops, you have some online workshops, you have many different ways of bringing in income so that if one crop fails, you have many others, similar to your financial freedom. It's such an honor to have Ancel Mitchell on today's webcast, because she is one of the most inspiring women I know in the homestead regenerative movement. And If you haven't visited Ancel, she is in Puerto Viejo at Finca La Isla, working with chocolate is your medicine. Every like 4 days a week, she's teaching classes and is just such a beautiful example of financial freedom, of sovereignty through regenerative farming and homesteading. Ansel, I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jane, for inviting me. It's a real honor for me to be on here too. It's a great honor to connect across the across the divide of the mountains from the Caribbean coast towards the Pacific coast. And it's lovely to see your place as well. I haven't yet. The view from above is pretty spectacular. It's amazing what you've accomplished in so little time, and it's also, you know, shows what you can do in just a few months, just a couple of years. We're in such a privileged place here that in the tropics where things don't rest, where things grow all year round, and we can really take advantage of that. Yeah, so thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So Jean was saying about, yeah, I'm part of a farm called Finca La Isla on the Caribbean side, just outside Puerto Viejo. And my husband, Peter, has been here since 1986. So he really took the farm over. It was an abandoned cacao plantation, and he turned it into a food forest and a agricultural, a forestry, he started off, he took out a lot of the cacao. The cacao was having problems here. And he took out a lot of the cacao and planted in tiers. So he put in his climax crops, you know, the crops that he wanted to have at the end of the process. And while he was waiting for those fruit trees to come in, then he planted a lot of short-term crops. So he planted a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of yams and yam peas and sweet potatoes, and he planted medicinals, and he planted quicker turnaround fruits as well, and spices. Black pepper was one of his main sources of income in those early years. And so as the forest has grown up, it shaded out those plants. And so we're constantly, or not constantly, but every year we make a new space in the forest, a new orchard, and we do that system of farming. It's actually an old system. It comes out of South America. It's called chakra system, which is a, you know, there's only so many sounds in the world. It's got nothing to do with the East Indian chakras, but it's a system of farming where the forest is cleared, but it's not cleared. It is where we take out the undergrowth, we take out the smaller trees underneath the canopy trees, and as those trees are felled, we plant around them. And so we plant in guilds. So we plant our climax crop, which is what we want the long-term crop to be, or what we want in the long term, whether that's lumber or whether that's fruit or nut or a source of starch like a breadfruit or jackfruit. And then we plant shorter term crops. We plant shade trees for those babies, baby trees, and nitrogen fixers, and then usually pumpkin or bean and a ground cover that's nitrogen fixing that's going to go back into the soil and nourish it. And so it's very staggered. So as we're able to eat and harvest from those first crops for the first maybe 4 or 5 years, and then the trees get to the point where we start harvesting from them too. And so there's a point in the middle there, around 5 to 7, between 3 and 7 years of a new orchard where it's at its most productive. And then gradually the trees get big, they overwhelm or shade out everything underneath it. And then we have replaced the forest with another type of forest, a food forest. And so we do that on the farm. The farm is 48 acres, and we have probably 6 different orchards so far that we've done. So Peter's been here for 36 years. And he initially worked the lower 10 acres of the property, and now we have these 6 orchards coming up in different stages of development. We've actually just connected two orchards. We had some trees fall down between two distinct orchards, and so we're changing the way that we're working. We're gonna start planting, and Peter is planting durian there today, so we're planting that with other trees. Yay! I don't like durian, but yay! So that's what the farm does. Um, we're lowland. We're 40 meters above sea level at the highest point of the farm, and we're about 400 meters back in from the beach. And so um, we have weather definitely that relates to to the ocean. On this side, we don't have a wet season and a dry season. It pretty much rains throughout the year. Last 2020 was really, really dry. 2021 was really wet. This year has been dry up until the last couple of weeks, and it's been raining pretty hard. So the weather is changing, and so we're thinking, how are we going to change with the climate crisis that is here? So what crops are we gonna have to change? What crops we're focusing on? Yeah, what's the future of the farm? What are we gonna end up with? Yeah, it's an interesting question, and we don't know the answer to it. We're watching what other places are doing. We have the same climate as Burma and Malaysia. So he goes to Malaysia. He tries to go to Malaysia every year, and so he's watching what farmers are doing there to deal with the climate crisis. So yeah, that's a very broad and brief overview of what we do on the farm, or who the farm is. Jean,
Thank you,
do you have any?
Ancel. If you haven't visited Finca La Isla, and Ancel has these workshops every like 4 days a week,
All the time.
visit her because it's so inspiring, and I learned so much from Ancel, and the way that we think about financial freedom and homesteading, it's all kind of connected. I think that the amount of biodiversity that we're bringing into the lands, the healthier our soils are, the healthier the lands are, and then that nutrition is going back to us, and then as we produce compost, it's going back to the soil, and so it's all connected in regenerative agriculture. And thinking about, it's a very interesting topic of seeing how the climate is going to impact, well, the whole world and just our seasons. However, with growing in a agroforestry system, we know that we have resilience because we have many different varieties of plants and companion plants. So Ancel, working with cacao, she has durian maybe as a canopy tree, but cacao could be on a lower level within that same agroforestry system. And thinking about becoming a producer of your life. So instead of just consuming and consuming, how can we start to become a producer of our life and produce some of our own products? So I was talking to Ancel earlier. She could be 100% food sovereign if she wanted to be, if she cut out some of the like broccoli, cabbage, onions sort of thing. Same with us. Right now we're 50% food sovereign, but we're still buying some of those same higher elevation types of plants from the local market. And we're still buying a few imported products, such as like tahini, for example. Well, it's made in Costa Rica, but not in this area. So the items that I produce on a weekly basis that really help support our family and our abundance is I make all my own kombucha, ginger beer, sauerkraut, salsas, and herbal blends, sauces for our food. And that really does cut out a lot of expenses that I was spending before. in my past life, I spend so much money on kombucha and those types of specialty items, and we can start to produce our own specialty items. Maybe someday I'll produce chocolate like Ansel. Like chocolate is definitely one of our biggest medicines and something that we're still purchasing from Ansel and our favorite other producers of chocolate. But Ansel, what would you say when you think of just through the years, you have a few different streams of abundance. Talk a little bit more about how you're resilient in the ways that you are producing different income streams.
Okay. So a little bit background to me. I'm from Scotland, and I'm from peasant stock. And so it's always been really important for me to make the best use of what you've got, and to not be so, oh, I moved myself, not be so reliant on other people. There's people think the Scots are stingy, and in my experience, the Scots aren't stingy, but they're canny. They're always trying to be independent or be sovereign. Um, yeah, you just need to look at the history of Scotland to find out why. So I've always been into doing as much for myself as I could. When I learned to knit at a very early age, I learned to sew at an early age, I learned to make soap at an early age, and so I learned to spin wool, or I learned to do ceramics. And so from a crafts perspective, which was where I was originally coming from, it was really important for me to work with the first ingredients, you know, to take it back to where it came off the land or where it came off the animal. I had goats that I would use for fiber as well when I lived in the US. And so so to get as back to the earth as possible, it makes me feel it makes me feel good. It makes me feel that I'm part of the world, or I'm part of nature, and that I'm in my I'm in my I'm in my element when I'm working closely with earth ingredients. And so when I moved to Costa Rica, it was the same. I got kind of pushed into being sovereign with my food. I'm a teacher by trade, and I was working in a little school. I wasn't making any money in the school, and I was running out of my savings, and I was poor. I was dirt poor. I had no money whatsoever. I didn't have the money to buy a bicycle, which is pretty rough in this part of town. I was house sitting for a couple, and I was just not making ends meet because I had come from the US and I was used to having certain foods every day. I was spending more than I had to spend. And so I decided that I wasn't going to spend anything. And I was getting into debt, and I've never been in debt before, and I didn't want to start getting into debt over hummus. That doesn't make any sense. So I decided that the only things I was going to buy were dog food, salt, initially coffee, and oil. Those are the only things that I allowed myself to buy. And for about 8 months, I lived on what I could grow, or what I could harvest, or what I could barter. And I was living in, I was house sitting in a house that had a big garden, and it was very close to the beach. And so I was able to get coconuts on the beach. There's a lot of wild bananas, there's wild chilies, and I was able to grow enough starches and enough veggies, or leaves, mostly leaves I ate. Pumpkin, tomatoes, chilies, some fruits, and really was amazed at how fun that was. You know, I worked in school from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, or 1:30 in the afternoon, and then the rest of the afternoon was spent foraging and gardening. In the morning, I would garden before school. In the afternoon, I would forage. I would prep my food for the day, and I would go to bed early. So it was beautiful, and I was able to do that. It was just me. I was living by myself at that stage, um, and so it was pretty simple. And I was so delighted and intrigued at how simple it actually was. And I know that we live in a very abundant place. There is, at that time, there was a lot of abandoned lots as well. Though, so I had access to breadfruit and jackfruit, and plenty of banana, and then what I could grow. And so my diet wasn't super varied, but all of the major food sources were in there. I was vegetarian at that point, and so I wasn't eating. I wasn't doing dairy, and I didn't have chickens at that point either, so I wasn't doing eggs. Um, but I had beans and I had starch, and so I felt like I was strong and I was healthy, and everything was going really well. And then I was able to barter some things too. I had a dehydrator, so I was drying fruit and then taking it to school and trading it for cake and sandwiches for the kids in my class, which was which was great. And because of that, I realized that the fruit that I was drying had value, and I started selling it at the farmers market. And then once I started selling at the farmers market, I decided that I would live off of what I was making at the farmers market and save my wages, my salary. And so within about a year, I had saved up all of my salary for that whole year, and had fun, really simplifying things to the point where I realized that, like Jean is saying, that I didn't need that much. We're really blessed in that we live in a climate where we don't need a heat and we don't need a cool. So it's really kind of easy for us to say that we don't need much because we don't have to pay so much electricity. We can get water from the rain if we're organized enough. And so we have this base level of support from the environment. So it makes it much easier for us here in the tropics to live simply. So in terms of now, we're a permaculture farm. So, one of the things about permaculture is that you have to have diverse incomes. So we have many different streams. We have the ingredients we have the fruit from the farm. Peter has a fruit tree nursery, and he does consultations. And then we sell our goods at the farmers market. So we sell fresh fruit, but we also sell dried fruit at the market. The chocolate has steadily become a larger and larger part of our income. When we first started making chocolate, we were selling maybe 30 bars a week at the farmers market, and now it's between 300 and 500 bars a week, depending on the season. And so it's a big part of our income stream now. I make soap and body products as well. So, and we use recycled oil. We get it from a kitchen in town, a vegan restaurant in town. And we also get local coconut oil. So we're buying essential oil for that, and we're buying olive oil for that. But other than that, it's all stuff that we're sourcing here. I could eliminate essential oils and do it another way, but I haven't. So there's always things, that's part of this whole process of the creativity. Like, okay, where can I go now? Where can I go next? I also teach classes. There's 4 different classes taught here. There's chocolate making, there is fermentation, there's medicinal plants, and there is gardening classes, or farm to table classes, where we go harvest things from the garden, and then we come in and we cook them together. And that is, we offer once a month. The last Sunday of a month, we have a community lunch where we invite members from the community, and we'll harvest together, we'll prepare the food together, and then we'll eat together. and that has been so wonderful. Um, it's a way when we're cooking food together. It's a beautiful way to connect. It's a beautiful way to talk about what's important, especially when we're going out to the garden and we're rinsing the dirt from the garden off of the food that we're about to eat. It's a incredible transformation, and so it's really, I think that excuse me, I think that's been one of the most important things that we've done recently. There's a lot of newcomers to this area. I'm sure it's the same where you are, Jean. And excuse me, and introducing people to a simpler way of living, or like, okay, you can do this too. This is not rocket science. This is earth science. This is really simple. Has been beautiful, really beautiful.
Mm, yeah, so inspiring. I think that the diversification of your crops, the diversification of your income sources and streams, that if one week you're sick, you can't do something, stuff is still happening, other things are still happening in the background. It's just being resilient to the changing climate. Like, for example, during this whole pandemic over the last few years, tourism shifted to be more just, there wasn't as much tourism. So we saw a lot of farmers in our neighborhood, and people that weren't farmers before want to start growing some of their own food. And we saw children that were living in cities go back to their parents' homesteads and start to work the land. So it's just so important to um, and to grow some of our own food. We can even just start with a few pots in our household of just a few herbs that we get to know and utilize on a daily or weekly basis. And I think what Ansel said of just starting to simplify, I recognized that in my past life, I was spending so much on just unconscious consumption. And just to cover my basic monthly needs. And now, just becoming aware of what we're spending on, what is it really necessary, and finding a way to trade with neighbors. To In our neighborhood, we have in our community, we have a meetup where we just bring all of our things we're not using, books, clothes, um, household items, and we all bring it, and then we just go shopping together. And we share a potluck and shop within each other's like garage kind of items we're not using anymore. So thinking about getting creative with how we exchange resources, how we can really live within our means. And like Ansel said, like, I love the story of how you were able to spend so little in 1 year, and see how it is possible. Um, Living here in the tropics, we are very blessed to be able to grow almost all year long. We have no winter here. So it will vary, obviously, if you're up north, having a winter season and canning and all of what you do for winter preparations. But I'm a living example. I went from spending a lot, like over 5,000 a month, to now spending around 1,000 a month on our household items in just 6 years. That's what I've reduced down to, and we're still working on reducing more as we produce more. Our fruit trees on this land are around 2.5 years old, and like Ansel said, the fruiting for most of the fruit trees starts around 4 to 7 years old. So when that happens, we'll be producing whatever we have excess of. We could create dehydrated products, or just exchanging fruit for other items we may need. So let's see. What other topics do we want to discuss about financial freedom? Do we want to open up to any questions first and see what comes of that? What else do you have to say, Ancel?
I have to say that genius has boldness in it. It's a quote from Nietzsche. Oh no, maybe it's a quote from Goethe. I think it's either Goethe or Nietzsche. It's some old German guy. And so, you know, if you think that you can do something, then do it. You know, just try it. People really value creativity and imagination. If you've learned something by making a ton of mistakes, then you can teach it. You know, and if you I'm a teacher by trade, and I do storytelling classes. Oh, I do, but I do chocolate making classes 4 times a week. And in part of the chocolate making class, we are shelling beans. And so whoever is in the room is sitting around a table shelling beans together. And I talk about how this is how food was prepared before. And so in the same way that Jean is talking about going to a meet where people are bringing unused items and exchanging them or getting rid of them, I mean, that is traditional. People have been doing that for thousands of years all over the globe in native communities. The whole, the idea of a potluck came out of potlatch, which was an indigenous, North American indigenous tradition where once or twice a year you would take all your stuff and people would go through your stuff and take out what they needed. And so when we're sitting around doing something together, we're creating community, we're creating resiliency, we're creating ingenuity, we're creating creativity, and things can grow out of that. You know, there is an alternative currency here that's taking hold called the Seba, and so there's taxi drivers taking Seba, and there's mechanics taking Seba, and so it's not just, you know, people who are living alternatively who are taking it now. It's gradually becoming part of the ordinary reality in this area, and that came out of conversation. And so financial freedom, that list that Jean showed at the beginning is beautiful. I would add to that financial freedom is a mindset too. You know, like you have to think, okay, what is my relationship to wealth? What is my relationship to money? What is it that's holding me back from doing what I want to do? And I'm pretty good at making money. Because I love the idea of, I think it's because I love the idea of abundance. I'm terrible with banks. I'm absolutely awful with banks, but that comes out of trust issues with authority. And so I'm great at making money. I'm not good with banks, but yeah, that's something I have to work on. That's coming next. But I think it's a mindset. It's like, okay, what is it that I need and what is it that I have, and what's the relationship between those two things, and what maybe somebody else has a need, or maybe somebody else has a desire that I can fulfill. And so it's working out, you know, one, simplifying, but two, complicating your social life too, you know, complicating your community. So simplifying on okay, am I part of the industrial complex? Am I part of the financial regulations? Am I part of that? Or is that something that scares me? Is that something that thrills me? And then on the other side, okay, then what do I have to offer? When the pandemic hit in Costa Rica in 2020, on the 16th of March, the borders were shut and tourism died on that day. And we are in a tourist town. And so I was really concerned initially about, okay, what's going to happen? tourism gives work here. So the majority of people here are either working directly in tourism or they have a family member who's working in tourism. Almost everybody is working in tourism. Unless you're a fisherman or a hunter, somehow you're involved in tourism here. And so, or a farmer, but even so, you need money. You need to sell your crops to somebody. And the people who we sell to are not tourists, but they rely on tourism for their income. And so that the 16th of March happened, and I was a little bit concerned about what was going to happen in this town. And what happened in this town is people started growing. They went back to what they had done before tourism. Tourism is maybe 20 years old here. And so they just went back to how they had been. There was a lot more fishermen out on the water. There was a lot more hunting that went on in the forest. There was a lot of that returning to trading with your neighbors. There was always the entrance to the supermarkets. There was all of these wagons that you would buy something extra and put it in the wagon, and it would be divided up between families who weren't making it or who were struggling. But it was beautiful how things just shifted. And so that gave me so much hope that this whole financial rush that we're in, and it happens in Costa Rica as well. 6 years ago, or maybe 8 years ago now, nobody had a cell phone. The only thing that you could get in this part of the world was a landline, and you needed to be a resident to get landlines. So nobody had a cell phone. And then suddenly now everybody has a cell phone. Even the kids have cell phones. And so we're on this rush and Amazon delivers here now. It didn't before, now it delivers here. And so we're on this rush into this bigger financial or complexity with the outside world. But the pandemic was awesome in that it showed us like, oh yeah, okay, we're not fully in it. We're not actually in the mouth of the beast. We're kind of like in the hand of the beast, but there's still a chance for us to change our mentality and do something different. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fabulous. I think it's so interesting also thinking about, you talked about the Seva cryptocurrency that's happening in that area. There was a question on there on the chat about that, but before we get into that, I'm seeing the adoption of cryptocurrency really high in Costa Rica and all over the world. It's kind of catching on in different areas, and crypto is another way of diversifying from the, first you want to invest in your land, you want and your house, and but cryptocurrency is another asset that is catching on, and we see it in Costa Rica and other parts of the world. And do you want to go into a little bit about what the Seva is in Puerto Viejo?
Sure. So the Seva is not physical currency yet. It's somebody with a book. And so if you do a trade or you want to sell something, a Seva equals 1,000 colones. One Seva is 1,000 colones. And so it's still attached to a monetary value. We haven't switched away from that yet. A few years ago, we tried to start something that was hourly based. So 1 hour of your time is exactly the same as 1 hour of my time. But that was a hard stretch for people to do. I would love us to get to the point where an hour of your life is the same value as an hour of my life. So I think that would be ideal. But we're not there yet. So a Seva is 1,000 colones. So if I'm selling a loaf of bread and my loaf of bread costs 3,000 colones, that's 3 Sevas. So I give you the bread, we both go to the person with the book and we write down, okay, Ancel has 3 Sevas and Sandra has minus 3 Sevas. And so we need to evolve it a little bit so that we don't need to go to that one person that's holding the book. And so it's in its early days. It's been going for about maybe 8 months, 9 months now. Um, there is a barter market every other Sunday in town. And that has everything. It has childcare, it has face painting, it has musicians that you can tip sebas to. It has goods for sale, and it has goods for trade or barter. And so that runs on money, colonies, and it runs on Saba too. And there's a list of people who are involved in the Saba who will take Saba. So initially you put in 10,000 colonies and you buy 10 Sabas, and then you can start using the Saba. So you have to kind of buy them initially, because otherwise, how do you get them? You can't spend them unless you have them. And so and that 10,000 went to setting up and paying for the person who administers it. But yeah, that's how it's working here, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. Yeah, I think that sometimes we don't even think about water and the value of our water too. I mean, just being able to collect water and then have your own water source in your own house is so it's so important as well. With the privatization of water um, and then the unknown chemicals that are being put in public water systems. Here at our farm, we set up a water system. We have a well that goes to it has a fresh spring, and then we have river water. So thinking about water as a really important, and rainwater as well. We have rainwater collection. But water is such an important part of our lives, and having access to fresh water is very important resource to have access to. Um, Other ways that,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
So we're a commercial kitchen for the chocolate, and because we're a commercial kitchen, we have to have city water in the kitchen. This is the only building that has city water on the farm. We have well water on the main part of the farm, and at my house, at Peter and I's house, and here we're on rainwater. So Puerto Viejo is growing really fast, and the water system has not grown in the last 30 years. And so we're rationed with our water. We have water. We have had 20 minutes of water since last Friday, city water. And so, we're thankfully we're having a good amount of rain just now. We could also have a creek that we could get water from, but if there's no, it's a rain creek. So if there's no water, if there's no rain, there's no water in the creek, or very little. And so water is a huge issue in this area. A lot of beyond Puerto Viejo, the water comes from a different source. And so they know when they're getting water, they get water 2 hours a day or 2 hours every other day if there's a lot of people here. But we are on a different system, and you never know. We have our water tap turned on in the kitchen so that we know if there's water. And if there is water, then it's a huge rush to fill up as many buckets and tanks as we can with the city water. We drink a lot of kefir, and we have rainwater is no good for kefir because the kefir needs minerals. The same as kombucha, it needs minerals. Rainwater is soft water, and so we use our city water, which we run through a filter, and then we let sit for 24 hours for the chlorine to go, and then we run it through a filter before we use it. But my kefir grains are suffering a little bit because I only have that one source of water just now. So water for sure is going to be a bigger and bigger issue.
Yeah, I mean it is worldwide. I see water. It's already a huge issue in many parts of the world. Access to clean water, and just in some parts of the world, it's not legal to even set up your own rainwater system, and it's such an easy thing. It's just a natural resource that comes from the sky that we can collect and store that energy for later use. So I think the importance of collecting rainwater or having an alternative source of water is so important when we talk about sovereignty and financial freedom. And I'd love to open it up to questions, and then just like 10 minutes of questions, and then we'll end on the hour. You can take yourself on mute if you want, or in the chat you can put any questions. And we offer, so the streams of income for our farm are the book, which I just published last week, or a few weeks ago. It's a hard copy book of Regenerate Your Reality, and the ebook is being published on the 20th next week for Earth Month. And so maybe I'll send out an email next week for you all to support that. It's just a $3 ebook, and it will help me become a bestseller. So I'll send that out next week. And other sources are, we do farm tours on, we do farm to table farm tours, and then like a regenerative design kind of farm tour. And we also do regenerative consulting. We teach workshops and different retreats, and yeah, it's and then we also have products to exchange with our community. We're not selling our products, or more exchanging. And another way of income for us has been plants and plant sale, and exchanging plants as well. So just really thinking about all of your sources of income, and then also relaying it to what your passion is. Because time is so valuable, and if we are working for ourselves, we're nurturing our gardens around us, we're nurturing the earth, we're doing what sets our heart on fire, then that is going to attract abundance back to us. And I love that Ancel mentioned abundance is a mindset. It absolutely is. And we can take ourselves out of survival mode and be in thrival mode by connecting to our elements, connecting back to the earth, living more simply, and growing some of our own food, and becoming more producers of our life instead of just consuming and consuming like there's no end to tomorrow. So I hope this inspires everyone. I'd love to open it up to any questions. Ava, maybe you have something to say?
Yes. Thank you so much. This was so inspiring, Ansel. I love Ansel's chocolate. Is like a daily intake, and I actually host cacao dance, sacred cacao dance at Danyasa, a retreat center here. And I use Ansel's cacao and chocolate bar, and the feedback wherever I use them, and I do that in Costa Rica, in places of conflict around the world, and the feedback is always amazing. Also because of the way you use and you prepare the cacao, and I find like it's always uplifting. It has an energy of a fair. I always say it's like my fairy chocolate from the Caribbean. What else? My kids also love it, and they did. I don't know. I feel like there's something around the stories, I would say, because what we don't know here is like Ancel is an amazing storyteller, and we're actually planning. Maybe we haven't been, we don't have yet the details, but we have been planning with Ancel to do a cacao facilitation training, and Ancel is also. She has a cacao, how to make your own chocolate online training. So it's just like there's infinite possibilities of connecting and regenerating yourself with cacao. Like I do, I take Ansel's cacao also in my detox and cleanse retreat. So basically you don't eat anything but cacao and coconut, and it's just amazing how uplifting it is. So yeah, I don't know what else I can add to it. Love you, Ancel. Thank you for being here.
Yes. Thank you, Ava. Yeah, it's so beautiful to see now in this time so many people interested in permaculture and regenerative farming and starting to live more simply. I think if we sum up all of our financial freedom talk is abundance is a mindset, live on less than you earn, so making sure that you are not spending more than what you earn. You have a little savings in your garden, seeds that are already planted, food that's already growing, and a diversification uh, of assets and places that you have your um, your finances in cryptocurrencies and land, creating your own water sources, exchanging with others, being a part of regenerative projects, being your own business owner so that your time is of you're valuing your own time, and working on projects that are really aligned with what sets your heart on fire and gives you that passion in your life. So I want to share with you, we're launching a retreat this July, and it will be really fun. I'm going to show you first this is our backyard on how we designed our yard. And so when we think of regenerative farming and homesteading, thinking about how we can really maximize our space with as much biodiversity, food, and conservation efforts, conserving the forests and the rivers, and then really being able to maximize our space in every way. So we have a little garden area with a greenhouse and all of our medicinal herbs we've collected really close to our house. So we're using these herbs on a daily basis, multiple times a day, going out to get our oregano from our oregano plant, our mint, our basil, our garlic vine, all within such close proximity to our house. And then we have our food forest and annual crops just a little bit further away, but within a fenced area so that some of the little animals don't eat our yucca, for example. And we eat all of our roots from the land, and and all of our own veggies and salad greens from our own land. And just a reminder to just follow your passion. What you are passionate about is what you should do and will attract more abundance. A reminder to visit Ancel. Follow her at Chocolate is Your Medicine. I popped in the comments a website to go back to her website. And we do a monthly webinar series each month. Next month is on permaculture design with Scott, and it will be really amazing. We'll talk about permaculture design. So sign up for that class. And we have a retreat, and this is all about what we're talking about here. It'll be about permaculture, soil building, food medicine, fermentation, all of our favorite things to do in a day. And so we invite you to that and invite you to visit Ancel and just create your own reality. We all have this potential to grow, to plant and expand, and now is the time. And our Mother Earth needs us. This is also Earth Month, so I encourage you to donate to planting trees and to plant your own trees, to get involved in forest gardens in your communities, potentially start gardens at schools that your kids or you're affiliated with, and really just start through action. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We're the change we want to see, and it's just by us being the change we want to see, then that ripples out to our friends and our families and our neighbors and beyond. And we can inspire others by just being on our own path. And And I see that with Ancel and us and all of us here. It gives us such hope to know that we're all in this together, and it's a very exciting time where we're really doing it. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, and yeah, I'd love, Ancel, any last words before we close this workshop?
Yeah, just start where you are. Start small. You know, if you have tomato starts, and you don't have enough room to plant all those tomato starts, then put it out on a local list and see who you meet. Join classes or join extension programs. If you're in the US, there's always extension programs from local universities. Community is a thing that's going to get us through the next few decades. If we have community, if we have resilience in community, then we can do anything. It's working together that's going to change everything. Yeah, so thank you, Jean. Thanks for having me on. This has been really inspiring to me and very exciting, and I'm fully pumped now to go out and work in the garden.
Yeah, I know. It's for here. It's rainy season, so we are. We're excited to plant our next crops and expand our food production systems. So I really appreciate everyone coming here, and I'll send out a recording. So if you want to share it with others, feel free. And if you have any questions, you can email me or Ancel. And yeah, may we live regeneration. Go ahead.
Can I say one more thing? You know, so if you have an apartment and it's just the end of winter and you don't have the privilege that we have living in the tropics, then start with sprouts. You know, sprouts and kombucha. That's already going to change your entire life. You're watching those sprouts grow and knowing that you're getting all of those beautiful chemicals, those beautiful phytonutrients in there, and in kombucha. Look on YouTube for how to make sauerkraut if you're not already making it. These tiny steps that every single one of us can do is look on Craigslist or local community news, get some SCOBY and start small. And that is going to be so inspiring and so much fun that that energy is going to build and go out, radiate out from you. You're going to be an inspiration.
Yes. Yes, perfect note to end on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Mwah.